A very good morning to all my dear listeners, and thank you for your constant support. And here I am again, as we have decided that consecutively 3 days we are going to read this story. So let's start. What was the name of the story? Fakir Chand. And where we last kept our story to yesterday, it was there where we found that and the son of the king has married the princess and they were there with the son of mantri, and also they were living under that water tank. Yeah, right. So let's start to read it further, but before that I must say this is the folk tales of Bengal, and it has been summarized, or it has been collected and written by Reverend Lal Bihari Dey, and it is a very old book. It was first published in 1883, and this particular edition, or this particular copy, was first published in 1912. So let's start to read further in the story. The king's son became inexpressively happy in the company of the princess, who was an amiable in her disposition as she was beautiful in her person. And though the wife of the minister's son was living in the upper world, he too participated in his friend's happiness. Time thus passed merrily when the king's son bethought himself of returning to his native country, and as it was fit that he should go with his princess in due pomp, it was determined that the minister's son should first ascend from the Subakwas regions, go to the king, and bring with him attendants, horses, and elephants for the happy pair. The snake jewel was therefore had in requisition. The prince, with the jewel in hand, accompanied the minister's son to the upper world, and, bidding adieu to his friend, returned to his lovely wife in the enchanted palace. Before leaving, the minister's son appointed the day and the hour when he would stand on the high embankments of the tank with horses, elephants, and attendants, and wait upon the prince and the princess, who were to join him in the upper world by means of the jewel. Leaving the minister's son to wend his way to his country and to make preparations for the return of the king's son, let us see how the happy couple in the subterranean palace were passing their time. One day, while the prince was sleeping after his noonday meal, the princess, who had never seen the upper regions, felt the desire of visiting them, and the rather there as a snake jewel, which alone could give her safe conduct through the waters, was at that moment shedding its bright effulgence in the room. She took up the jewel in her hand and left the palace, and successfully reached the upper world. No mortal caught her sight. She sat on the flight of the steps with which the tank was furnished for the convenience of the bathers, scrubbed her body, washed her hair, disported in the waters, walked about on the water's edge, admired all the scenery around, and returned to her palace, where she found her husband still locked in the embrace of sleep. When the prince woke up, she did not tell him a word about her adventure. The following day, at the same hour when her husband was asleep, she paid a second visit to the upper world and went back unnoticed by mortal man. As success made her bold, she repeated her adventure a third time. It so chanced that on that day the son of the Raja, in whose territories the tank was situated, was out on a hunting excursion and had pitched his tent not far from the palace from the place. While his attendants were engaged in cooking their noonday meal, the Raja's son sauntered about on the embankments of the tank, near which an old woman was gathering sticks and dried branches of trees for purposes of fuel. It was while the Raja's son and the old woman were near the tank that the princess paid her third visit to the upper world. She rose up from the waters, gazed around, and seeing a man and a woman on the banks again, went down. The Raja's son caught a momentary glimpse of the princess, and so did the old woman gathering sticks. The Raja's son stood gazing on the water. He had never seen such a beauty. Oh, look at her, the princess, with the Nagmani, and she is ascending, and this is the palace within that water tank. So let's see. She seemed to him to be one of those Devakanyas, heavenly goddesses, of whom he had read in old books, and who are said now and then to favor the lower world with their visits, which, like angel visits, are few and far between. The unearthly beauty of the princess, though he had seen her only for a moment, made a deep impression on his heart and distracted his mind. He stood there like a statue for hours, gazing on the waters in the hope of seeing the lovely figure again. But in vain, the princess did not appear again. The Raja's son became mad with love. He kept muttering, "Now here, now gone. Now here, now gone." He would not leave the place till he was forcibly removed by the attendants who had now come to him. He was taken to his father's palace in a state of hopeless insanity. He spoke to nobody, he always sobbed heavily, and the only word which proceeded out of his mouth, and he was muttering them every minute, were, "Now here, now gone. Now here, now gone." The Raja's grief may well be conceived. He could not imagine what should have deranged his son's mind. The words, "now here, now gone," which ever and anon issued from his son's lips, were a misery to him. He could not unravel their meaning, neither could the attendants throw any light on the subject. The best physicians of the country were consulted, but to no effect. The sons of Eculapius could not ascertain the cause of the madness, far less could they cure it. To the many inquiries of the physicians, the only reply made by the Raja's son was the stereotyped words, "Now here, now gone. Now here, now gone." So, my dear friends, I am going to arrest this story reading here till now for today. We will come back tomorrow for the next part. Until then, I must wish you a very pleasant day and a very good start of this week. And I hope you will be with me. You will continue your blessings in terms of the support which you are showing me in all the social media platforms. So till then, see you tomorrow, right? Ta-da!